about becoming you. It is in our continuing series. It is June, so it is Pride Month, and so it's all about honoring ourselves, knowing who we are, being confident and okay with who we are, and most importantly, loving ourselves for who we are right here and right now on this journey, forgiving anything that may have happened in the past and opening ourselves to the possibilities of right now, and coming into those possibilities with the beauty and the light that we each are. And loving ourselves is a big, big part of that. So here's a song called Love Song. I love myself for who I am and who I shall become. The happy ever after, but occasionally numb. You know what I mean? The drama and the playfulness, the energy that flows, the heart that keeps on keeping on and always is aglow. Now there are things I did not ask for that tried to shake me from this truth, but I deny their power over me. Oh, I just laugh, then I start anew, 'cause I love myself for who I am and who I shall become. The happy ever after, but occasionally numb. The drama and the playfulness, the energy that flows, the heart that keeps on keeping on and always is aglow. Now sometimes my thoughts, they try to taunt me and make me second guess my worth, but I deny their power over me, then smile and know that love trumps hurt. And I love myself for who I am and who I shall become. The happy ever after, but occasionally numb. The drama and the playfulness, the energy that flows, oh, the heart that keeps on keeping on and always is aglow. It's up to me to recognize myself, 'cause when I live my truth, well, there's nothing I can't do. Oh, I love myself for who I am and who I shall become. The happy ever after, and every once in a while, just a little bit numb. Oh, the drama and the playfulness, the energy that flows, oh, the heart that keeps on keeping on and always is aglow. The heart that keeps on keeping on and always is aglow. I love myself for who I am from my heart and soul. Thank you. We all agreed, the sound gals and video gals and I agreed that I'm just going to hang out at the Panana today. That's where I'm comfortable, and that way I don't have to go back and forth and sprinting back and forth across the platform. So today we're talking about becoming you. Me becoming me and you becoming you. We're always in a state of becoming, right? Sometimes we show up as unbecoming. Sometimes it happens to the best of us. Even when we think we're going to seize the day and carpe diem with love and joy and the joie de vivre in our heart, every once in a while we're unbecoming, and that's okay too. We have to forgive ourselves because we're human after all. Rumi says, it's in the journey where you become what you dream to be. The definition of becoming is the process of coming to be something. highly suitable, fitting, or appropriate. The definition of unbecoming is simply not becoming. It also means inappropriate behavior, being graceless every now and again, inept, not so often, incongruous, and perverse. So we definitely want to be on the becoming team as much as possible, right? Well, I'm sure you'll all be shocked to know that there are times when even I exhibit all sorts of unbecoming behavior. We all do. I know I'm such an angel. Can't you see my halo? I'm taking care of my mommy and I'm glowing all the time, but every now and again, especially when we get tired or we're exhausted, I've noticed now, not that it's a knock against aging, but I have noticed now that I am aging, it takes a lot more energy to stay in the becoming frame of mind. And so when my energy starts going a little bit south is usually when I'm tired and when I just don't have the energy to keep up the good work. Here, I wanted to say this part because I thought it was kind of clever. It's just part of being human, but the art of being human is balancing and managing our time and energy so well that we are becoming much more than we are unbecoming. Now, I don't know if you remember a few years back, my daughter had just started dating her now husband, Alex, and I had bought the book Becoming by former First Lady Michelle Obama. And oh my goodness, it's such a great book. If you have not read it yet, oh wow, really do read it. It's not just for the ladies, it's for everyone. It's such a great book. And she talks about never expecting to become the First Lady, much less the very first African American First Lady. And here are a few of her thoughts about becoming and about how humans evolve. She says, most of us are in a constant state of calibration, tweaking one area of life in hopes of bringing more steadiness to another. And ain't that the truth? Sometimes our brain is constantly calibrating. And I just heard on NPR on the way in, I listen to NPR all the time instead of regular radio. And Aisha Roscoe was interviewing a gal who is an author and a journalist who actually has stuff going on in her brain. She doesn't see in 3D. She doesn't have very good spatial and facial awareness. So there are some times when many of us, even as we're showing up as in a normal mode, we're calibrating, but then there are those that do have certain deficiencies and certain brain abnormalities or physical situations and challenges where it is really, really hard to keep that calibration going. And people are having to work even harder to maintain. But Michelle Obama also says, failure is a feeling long before it becomes a result. It's vulnerability that breeds with self-doubt and then is escalated, often deliberately, by fear. And I don't know about you guys, but that's when I show up as the most unbecoming, especially when my daughter was little and now taking care of my mom who is sliding so fast with the dementia. It's when I get stuck, and a lot of us, when we get stuck in our fear, that sometimes we slip too, and we lose our footing. It's like being stuck in a riptide. But fortunately, for those of us who have chosen a path of deeper spirituality, we have a treasure trove of tools that we can pull from. We have awesome books. Now there are podcasts online that we can listen to, which are great. I listen to those a lot in the car when I'm traveling as well. There's all sorts of magazines. There's a magazine called Breathe, and it's even available at Publix. And every once in a while, I'll grab one of those, and I can read it, and then I can put it in Karen's place because she doesn't like to read huge things. But she'll read a little bit now and again, and there are some great positive articles. Right now, we're going to spotlight just a few of the myriad things that affect how we find ourselves and how we become ourselves and come into ourselves, either wittingly or unwittingly, and how we change our perspectives and the things that mold us into who we are. Now, the number one thing that helps us become who we are the influencers. All of those influencing people out there and all of those influencing circumstances out there. I recently heard an interview about the female basketball star Caitlin Collins. Women's basketball is finally starting to get a lot of recognition now, and a lot of the players are starting to be spotlighted in the media, which is great. And there's a female player, Caitlin Collins, and when she was 6 and her brother was 9, for Christmas, her brother got a skateboard, and she did not. And her parents just thought that she was still a little bit too young and maybe didn't have the coordination skills yet, but she wanted that skateboard so bad. And every chance she could get, she would take her brother's skateboard and she'd go out and practice. And eventually the parents relented and they bought her a skateboard. And she quickly surpassed her brother in all of the tricky skills and things that could be done on the skateboard. And they knew immediately from the very beginning then, from the age of 6, that she was super athletic. And from that point on, that is what they supported. They supported her in coming into her own with the skills that she had, with the coordination skills and with the hand-eye coordination that she had. So much of who we will become is impacted by the influence of others. Siblings, like trying to keep up with especially if you're a younger sibling, trying to keep up with your older siblings, your parents, your family members around you, your friends, people in your church community, professional athletes influence us, public figures expressing themselves. I think I may have told this story to you guys a year or so ago. My husband and I were working on a tennis court job over off of Northside Drive, and it was a private residence, and it was a huge old property, and the tennis court was just in awful condition, as a lot of these sometimes are in these older mansions over in town. And there was a young family that had just moved into this home, and the little girl was out on the driveway. We couldn't see because of the trees where our tennis court was, but we could hear. And every few minutes, we would just hear this poor baby child pitching a fit. Pitching a fit. And then all of a sudden, after about, this went on for 3 hours. And all of a sudden, it stopped. And I said, well, I guess she must have screamed herself out and gone inside. I don't know. So at the end of the day, I went up to the mommy and I said, what were you doing to that poor child all those hours? And she said, oh, we're having a big birthday party for her brother tonight, who's older than her. And she wanted to be able to ride her bicycle without the training wheels when everybody comes over. And she wants to be able to show everybody what a big girl she is. And so every time she would, crash and burn, she'd pitch a fit, but then she'd get back up and she'd keep on trying. And she worked and worked and worked on it all day until she finally got it. And the mom said she got it one time and felt that feeling, and then she threw the bike to the side and she went inside and hopped on the sofa and watched her cartoons and had her juice box. As a little young child, she was probably 5 or 6, same age as Caitlin Collins when she saw her brother get the skateboard. And, this child figured it out. And once she knew she could do it, she knew it was possible every time she got on her bike. So she didn't feel like she needed to practice and hone her skills because she knew she could do it. At what point, when we achieve something and when we know we're capable of doing it, at what point do we lose that confidence as we age and get older? Why is it that sometimes, even I get self-conscious about playing the piano and singing a lot, and I've been doing it all of my adult life. Isn't it funny how we seem like we're becoming, and then sometimes we feel not quite enough yet? It's interesting. But when we're younger, we don't take no for an answer. There's something ingrained within us that absolutely knows we can do what we put our minds to. And sometimes there's that fear part that creeps in, like Michelle Obama says. It's a feeling, and you're just not quite sure. And so you buy into the fear rather than trusting in the factual information that you already know is there. So many people cross our paths, and some make a bigger impact than others. Whether it's a positive or negative impact, their influence can shift us and affect who we are becoming. But the deal is, we are always learning as we go. And so it's a matter of just embracing the fact that we are students, we are pilgrims on this spiritual path of life, and we're learning and we're open to learn. We don't always know everything. And even once we know it, then everything changes, and then we have to relearn something different sometimes, right? That's part of it. That's part of becoming who we are and coming to terms with that and making peace with that and not being afraid to keep trying. We're always learning. Little bird was whistling in my ear, telling me you got to keep on moving. You got a lot to do, my dear. And my angel's singing me a song, telling me you got to keep on grooving. Love will never steer you wrong. And we're learning as we go, evolving as our light shines ever brighter. Yes, we're learning as we go, evolving as our consciousness grows higher, higher. Oh. I read some books that gave a little clue, and I have to say that they've been helpful. I learned some stuff that I can use, and I'm praying every single day, and I know that Spirit hears me calling, guiding every step I take. And we're learning as we go, evolving as our light shines ever brighter. Yes, we're learning as we go, evolving as our consciousness grows higher. I'm enjoying every minute as they each fly by. Feel the wind beneath me, baby, as I'm slowly learning how to fly. Now we're learning as we go, evolving as our light shines ever brighter. Yes, we're learning as we go, evolving as our consciousness grows higher, higher. Yeah. So part of becoming you is learning as you go. Oh, no, well, we're going to do that one next. But part of who we are and how we become is learning as we go and not being afraid to learn new things and not being afraid to relearn, even if some people think they already know everything, don't they? That's kind of unbecoming sometimes. So what is it that helps us become ourselves? Well, there are the influencers. There are those people, places, and things that influence us and help guide us on our way. And then some of us hear a calling, and that calling helps frame who we are. Ministers and musicians and artists, many people in many different professions feel like they were called. Military people very, very often feel like they have a calling to serve. And my dad's mom, Lillian, grew up in Western Kentucky back in the 20s and 30s during the Depression. And she and her sister were both sent to college at Western Kentucky University. And in the 1930s, that wasn't something that was done, especially for females. And especially during the Depression, not very many people had a lot of extra money. And Ninny's mom and dad apparently had just enough money to be able to send her and Aunt Geet and all three of their kids to college, which was just a miracle back in those days. But when she got to Western Kentucky, she met my grandfather, and he was an education major as well, so they ended up in a lot of classes together, and they ended up getting married and starting a family, and they eventually migrated down here to Georgia. Well, about 7 or 8 years into their marriage, Aunt Diane had already been born, and then my dad was born, and Ninny and Papa were just going about their lives, being teachers and being parents and doing life. And one day, as the kids were probably later in their elementary school years, Ninny heard a voice in her head, and it said, "Lillian, you must paint." She's like, whatever, I don't know where that's coming from. Well, she didn't tell anybody about it. And a couple of days later, she had this voice in her head, "Lillian, you must paint." And so she talked to my grandfather. She said, "Paul, I am having some kind of voice in my head telling me that I have to paint." Papa's like, "Well, okay, let's just see what's going on with that. Let's get you a canvas and some paints and some brushes. Let's just see what happens. Maybe just kind of act on it and see what will come from it." Well, in the decades that followed, she painted hundreds and hundreds of paintings, sold lots and lots of them. Papa, seeing how Ninny was diving into her artistry, decided that he wanted to start taking photographs. And as she trusted her calling and trusted in who she could possibly become, Papa followed her lead, and he started becoming a really phenomenal photographer. And he was the president of a couple of different camera clubs. I remember going to the camera club meetings, and they would have the A to Z roll on the film, where it was alphabet, you'd have to take, and they would do slideshows. And so as a result of them trusting their calling and having faith in, I have this inclination, let's just see where it leads. As a child, I saw them leaning into their artistry and as part of just a fraction of who they totally were. And I thought to myself, well, gosh, I could be an artist too, maybe. Or, if they can do this, maybe there's something I can do. And they always had the big Wurlitzer organ in the living room. And I first started pounding on the bass pedals and thought that sounded pretty cool. And then I got up on the thing. I couldn't reach the bass pedals on the organ because I was too short. But then I started mashing all the buttons, and God bless them, they did not chastise me once and tell me to quit playing. I didn't get on their nerves. They were teachers, and they were patient, encouraging people. That was just in their nature. And so by the grace of God, again, our influencers, right? Grandparents are huge influencers. They supported me in just experimenting and working with music. And all of a sudden, finally, as I got older, I started becoming confident enough to write my own songs. So, sometimes you just never know what you can accomplish when that little nagging voice is in your head. I watched a movie a couple of weeks ago with Anthony Hopkins, and it was a true story. It's a story of a man named Nicholas Winton. He was an Englishman during World War II, and he visited Prague with a group of people, and he saw all these hundreds and hundreds and thousands of refugees, primarily Jewish, predominantly Jewish, that had immigrated in to Prague from all these different places that were being overtaken by the Nazi troops. And he said to himself, there's got to be something that I can do. I don't know what I can do. And he called his mom, who was wealthy. He came from a nice family that had money. He said, "Mom, I know you know people in the government. Can you help me?" And so, sure enough, Helena Bonham Carter played his mom, and she's such a great actress. And but this is a true story. And so the mother made a few phone calls, and he got like 10 of the children placed with adoptive foster families during the wartime. And so since he saw that he could get at least 10 of them placed, he said, well, gosh, let's just keep going. And everybody around him started seeing his efforts and said, yes, let's do something to help these children. Let's do something to get these children out. And in the end, he ended up getting close to 700 children out of Prague and into actual homes in England, where they grew up and had wonderful lives. Well, once the war was over and all of these children had been placed, the very last train full of children did not make it. The last train to England from Prague or from whatever the route was ambushed by Nazi troops, and over 100 people were gone that he was trying to save in that batch of people. And he just felt so heartbroken. And all of a sudden, right after that, the war was declared over. And so his services were no longer needed. And he went on to marry and have children of his own. And in his elder years, his wife was saying, Nicholas, you have to get all this stuff, all these old boxes and boxes and boxes of information. You have to get this stuff out of your office. It's just making the house look so junky and messy. It's been decades now. Please clean all this stuff up. So he starts going through the boxes. And he called to some of his people because he went into government work, and he called some of his friends at certain agencies, and he just wanted to know what had happened to just a couple of the kids. Do you know what happened to so-and-so? Do you know whatever happened to so-and-so? Well, all of a sudden, a friend of a friend had this TV show in London called, it was kind of like You Bet Your Life. It was a reality show, and it was a live studio audience show, and they invited him to the studio audience of the show. And he had always been a huge fan, and his wife was doing it on a ruse that, they've just invited you because they heard that, what you did during the war, and they just wanted to say thank you to you. And he said, well, that's very nice, but that was decades ago, but okay, I'll go because I love the show. And so he shows up to the studio audience, and he sits in the very front row, and he says, well, can't I sit in the back? I don't want to be in the very front. And they're like, no, this is your seat. You just sit right there. Well, he was surrounded. The entire audience was filled with the children that he had saved from the war. And he looked around, and, he really didn't get a whole lot of accolades. He didn't expect a whole lot of accolades. He was just a humble public servant during the war, doing what he felt was the Christian thing and the right thing to do. He was not Jewish himself, but he still loved all paths to God, and he loved and respected all people, and he knew that these children needed to be safe. And and then that compartment of his life was done, and everything was just normal, back to same old normal again, and life took over. And then all of a sudden, when he's almost 80 years old, here are all of these people. And at the reception afterwards, at the post-show party, everyone got to come up and embrace him and give him hugs and tell him how much, because of him, they were alive. And they had all gone on to lead beautiful, productive lives. And it just goes to show you that he had the calling to just save a few children. And that little calling became something that catapulted into lots of people helping him. And not only did he save a couple of kids, he saved over 700 children. Well, many of us may just be going through our day-to-day routines and showing up as we are and accomplishing what we feel may be small things, but eventually those small acts of grace add up, defining our character and becoming the core of who we are. And all of this to say, it doesn't matter what phase of life you are in or what your current modus operandi is. When we are open to the still small voice within us that prompts us from time to time, we can end up doing quite spectacular things, right? I wrote this song for my daughter when she felt not so spectacular. You really are spectacular. I wonder if you know who you are. You're glorious, magnificent, and every day you shine like the stars that you are. You're beautiful and wonderful and filled with all that you're gonna need. Oh, you truly are spectacular. That is just who you are. Time to give yourselves credit for what you achieve. Understand the blessings that are always there for you to receive. It's time to open and believe that you really are spectacular. It's time for you to know who you are. You're glorious, magnificent, and every day you shine like the star that you are. You're beautiful and wonderful, filled with everything that you need. Oh, you truly are spectacular. That is just who you are. Spectacular. Spectacular. So what are these lies that you've been hearing? It's time to throw them away. Come on, let's trust, have faith, and know who we are. 'Cause who we are is incredible. And filled with all that you're gonna need. Oh, you truly are spectacular. That is just who you are. Oh, you're truly all spectacular. That is just who you are. Leaning into your spectacular, leaning into the calling, leaning into the people who have been positive influencers. There's also one more thing that helps us become who we are, and that's leaning into the gratitude. Nothing is more becoming than gratitude. Meister Eckhart said, if the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it will be enough. The quickest way to raise your vibration level is to lean into your blessings and lean into all of the things that are going great in your life, leaning into the gratitude. As I myself am now coming into my golden years, I'm taking specific meditation time every day to be grateful for my body. I see all of the toll that physical and mental wear and tear has taken on my mom's body and on my dad's body. He passed away of lung cancer because of decades and decades of smoking. And so I really take now very specific time, meditation time every day to give thanks. I learned all of my 12 of my major body systems, and I thank every single system of my body. And then I thank my eyes and my ears and my nose and my hearing and my senses. I give thanks for everything. When I'm riding in the car, I give thanks for all of the other cars on the road. Even if I see somebody doing something a little bit silly and sassy and maybe unsafe, I just say, I'm sending you blessings. I know you're an awesome person and I'm sending you blessings. Come on now. Let's all be focused and conscious and alert. That's where my energy goes. We can use our spare time fantasizing about drama or negativity or the end of the world. Or, right now with the election year coming up, so many people are worried and concerned that democracy is on the voting block this year. And it's easy, again, like Michelle Obama says, to buy into that fear, to buy into that feeling. So we can use our extra energy to focus on the drama and the negative and the negative fantasies and the monkey chatter that may go on in our mind. Or we can use our energy to count our blessings, to be open to all of the miracles and the synergy that is around us. And we can send blessings to the world. We can send blessings to those people whose ideas and concepts we may not agree with. If there is someone or a political figure or people in your family that you may not necessarily agree with, what you can do is, rather than focusing on the negativity, send them blessings of conscious evolution. Send them blessings of knowing how to lean into love, knowing how to lean into community and into being productive and constructive rather than destructive. And as we conclude our time together, I invite you to consider who you are becoming. The good news is we are never done. We are always either becoming or unbecoming. Many of us are making good progress. So take heart and keep your chin up. Or as my dad would say, keep your chins up. Let's remember to give ourselves credit, like the song Spectacular says. Remember to give yourselves credit for the things that you accomplish and for the times when we leave a light footprint on this earth. May we all become more spectacular every day. I'll close with a quote from the Dalai Lama. When we feel love and kindness towards others, it not only makes others feel loved and cared for, but it also helps us develop inner happiness and peace. And so as we show up in the world every day, becoming who we are, being who we are, and becoming more and more evolved, let's remember that we are influencers as well. Not only do we get the influences from other people, but we are the influencers. If we have a friend or a family member that has told you and been vulnerable and says, I hear this calling, support them in that and say, hey, yeah, try that. You never know where it could lead. And remember to lean into your gratitude every day. We are all doing the very, very best we can every day. I see how this church has evolved and become such a beacon of light. It's such a sacred energy here in this space. And I give thanks for all of you that choose to serve and choose to keep being here and to keep this place going. You are part of the collective of who all of us are becoming as humanity. All of our collective energy and co-creative energy matters. And so I say to all of you, thank you for being who you are, and thank you for becoming who you may evolve into even greater. Thank you so much. And now let's take this time to do a very brief meditation. We're going to dim the lights a little bit.